I'm thrilled to be with you. We're talking about product management in the real world, out there in the wild. Um, and who am I to be talking about such a topic? Well, let me tell you. My name is Heidi, and I work for a company called the Product Recruiter, and I lead our product practice. And so what that means is I am out in the market, in the real world, talking with two communities of individuals. Number one, I'm talking with CEOs, chief product officers, founders, whoever is building a product organization, hiring product talent. And then I also I'm talking with the market, product leaders, product individual contributors, anyone and everyone who is part of a product organization. And I've been doing this for a very long time, too long. I'll let you connect with me on LinkedIn and you can read my About section for the full bio. I spend a lot of time in the product community, meeting with product organizations, product communities. I've been on podcasts, webinars, all the things. So, anyways, that's a little bit about me, but I want to talk about what we're going to talk about today, which could be put into three big buckets, and then there's some kind of rabbit trails because we're also going to talk about product careers. Okay, the product landscape, what it actually looks like in the real world. What does product look like? Product as a function and product organizations. And of course, what I mentioned, how some of the big decisions that you have to make fit in to product organizations. I want to begin with introducing this idea that product management exists in different forms in different types of companies. Product in native tech, we're going to talk about that. Product in an enterprise, I'm talking about companies like banks or public sector entities. Product in services companies like, oh, I don't know, Accenture or custom software development shops. And then product in innovation labs, which is always really fun to talk about. Who doesn't love the word innovation if you're in product in any way? So we're going to tease this out first because it's really important to understand that there's room for everyone who wants to get into product. There's room for you. There is a career to be made. There is a career to be successful in. And some of the big decisions that you are going to want to think about and make is what is the path you are going to begin to step out in to pursue your career in product. I'm starting with what product looks like in native tech because this is how most people think about product management or a product role. If we meet someone who is a product manager in the industry, we're probably going to think that they work for a business where the product is the business. And because the product is the business, the product is what generates revenue. These terms are often, this type of a business is often referred to in these terms as sales-led growth process or a product-led growth process. So either salespeople are cold calling and knocking on doors of companies to sell the product, or the product is converted through a self-serve platform and without a salesperson. So if we think about a sales-led business, if you've ever heard of companies like Salesforce or HubSpot, these folks have enterprise salespeople and they're selling what? They're selling the product. Why? So it generates revenue. So the product really is the foundation of the business. And in product-led growth, we've got products like Netflix. And, I don't have to talk to a salesperson to subscribe to Netflix. It's all product-led growth motion. Product in a native tech company could look like software, which are the examples I just provided, or it could be a hardware product. It could be an Ecobee. It could be a Nest thermostat. It could be the Aura Ring, which is back in the news because of its incredible growth. And product in native tech often has ecosystems. So the best example around the world of an ecosystem that people will understand is Apple. So Apple's a product company. They employ people who build products, software products, hardware products. And it's an entire ecosystem to keep you in that tech stack and in that ecosystem. And in the world of a of a product organization in a native tech business, native tech company, when they think about scaling the business and really kind of pouring gas on it to grow fast, hard and fast, they think about not just what are we going to build, but they think about who might we acquire? What companies might we buy to accelerate our ecosystem being built out, to have more products faster that people will buy so that our revenue increases. And they also think about partnering. So all of those API integrations that connect products seamlessly so that you just flow through an experience. These are how companies think about, at some point, how do we scale and build and grow faster than just hiring more engineers who can build faster? At the end of the day, in a product organization, in a native tech business, product management as a function has high business value. Okay, everybody cares about the product organization. And this, my friends, is the North Star. If one says, I want to be a product manager, your goal is to work for a business where the business is the product. That's your North Star. Okay. Then we have product in an enterprise. Product in an enterprise is incredibly important because the product enables the business. So we think about a bank. Their products can differentiate them from the other banks, but the revenue of the business still comes from the business. Okay. So if you're a bank, you're not selling Heidi software. You're not selling your software to other banks. Okay. These types of product organizations, well, no surprise, these industries are highly regulated. These employers, if we think about an enterprise as an employer of product people, they are a lower risk profile. Okay. These enterprises are dealing with legacy and tech debt that often hinders their ability to do innovation and super cool stuff because they might still, have a server farm and stuff running in hardware to power the business. A narrative that becomes important in an enterprise is this idea of digital transformation. And these are often do or die scenarios because an enterprise will need to transform digitally and apply product principles so that they remain relevant and capture the attention of a modern user. So, whoever it was first who as a bank decided we need to launch a native mobile app, not just have something responsive that, functions through a browser, they were doing something incredibly transformative. And in an enterprise, product has the potential to unlock scale and to deliver disruption, like just to be that company who does something incredible and then everybody wants to be a part of it or model after that. When I think about an enterprise, we did work for the innovations part of RBC, and they had all kinds of, if anyone's ever heard of an app called Mydoh, MYDOH, check it out. Super cool product helping kids learn about finances. And that's really been a disruptor in the D2C fintech community. Then we have product in a services company. This is very interesting and important to know because product in a services company, at the heart, a services company is selling engagements and projects are the business. They want a project to go on forever. They want billable consultants. But those projects of building software or launching something new, they require product management principles because generally these engagements or these projects have something to do with building products or integrating products. So product applies innovation, it applies rapid prototyping to a consulting engagement to quickly be able to hit the high notes of what a company has engaged a services firm to do for them. All right. Services as a product is a very different type of product management role. It's not never one is not better or worse than another. It's just different. So when you're a product person in a services company, you're thinking about bundling and pricing and packaging. How might we create packages or products, service-based products that someone's going to want to buy and engage in? In a services company, it's important to understand that there's no software IP typically. The intellectual capital is people and what they know. And if people churn out of a services company, out goes that knowledge base, which can put a services company in tremendous risk. And in a services company, one of the challenges that they have in their business is how do we differentiate? And so I'll leave that with you to think about. But this is a viable career path for people. If not working for a native digital company, for an enterprise, if not an enterprise, a services company. And then we have innovation labs. This represents the smallest community of employers that would exist in a marketplace where a product exists. Sometimes an innovation lab is referred to as an incubator. Okay. And their goal is to find an idea that someone will want to pay for, it will generate revenue, and ultimately it can be spun out into a company. Okay. Now, some innovation labs exist on their own. The business is an innovation lab, or it exists within a company. Okay. So, famously, Google has sort of the Google lab that's at an off-site building separate from everything else that Google's doing, and all they're doing is incubation work. What might people want to use and experience and buy 5 years, 10 years out, leveraging all of the coolest things? So 5 years ago, they were working on smart glasses before we had ever heard of them. Okay. So these models are all about rapid prototyping, experimentation, testing, getting feedback. And then if they think, wow, we've got something here, writing the business cases, getting funding, then those innovation labs start to hire general managers or CEOs to run them. And often those leaders, hello, are product people. Okay. The risks, however, to someone's career in an innovation lab is that you could spend a lot of time trying to find a great idea that could be taken to market, but you don't. And so we have a risk of going to zero, of never getting to one. But the opportunity is the hero story. We conceived, we discovered, we delivered, and that now is the thing that's in the market that everybody wants, that everyone's talking about. So that's kind of what product looks like within the industry and all the different shades of product. But I want to talk about product as a function. Product management is incredibly nuanced. It is not a function that can be defined by a title, even though everybody wants to try to define it by a title. People will introduce themselves to me and they'll say, hi, I'm a product manager. Immediately, the Rolodex and the filing cabinet opens up. Well, what kind are you? Maybe, and I'm just going to run through a couple of the most common personas of product manager that someone could be. And they're all important. The last one, the super IC, is the one that if you're following product influencers like Nikhil Singh or Lenny or Shreyesh or Marty, everyone's talking about the super IC. But first of all, there's the 0 to 1. This person lives in discovery and ideation. They are thinking about what is a problem we can solve, how do we do it, and then going through that journey. There's the technical product manager, and there's many shades of technical. There could be an AI PM, which everyone's talking about, platform, infrastructure, or a very particular type of technology. There's the process person. By the way, this is who we want to avoid being, but just saying the process person who, when you talk with a process person PM, they want to make sure that you understand that they're doing agile, they're not doing waterfall, and that they're meeting with cross collaboration teams. Yeah, we know that. All of these personas do that. But this is a a persona who's very process oriented. Then there's the scaler. This person's thinking, how do we go from, 100 to a million? How do we deliver enough value in this product that we're going to hit an exit or something significant? Then there's the business person. This business person, product persona individual maybe they came up through sales or marketing. And so they're all about customers and all about being the voice of the customer more so than the average person who still has to do that stuff. But this person really embodies the market. Then there's subject matter experts. These people know a domain because maybe they came from the domain. So maybe they grew up in a manufacturing company and maybe they worked for GM for years. And then they said, you know what? I want to work for one of the products that empowers GM to do what they're doing. So I want to work for an autonomous vehicle company. Okay. So they're a domain expert in something. And then there's the manager. The manager is managing someone, and that persona in this market, there's fewer of those roles. We are in a season, my friend, of makers, not managers, which is why the last two are so exciting to talk about: the craftsperson in product. This individual is all about the craft of product and doing things at a world-class level. The challenges or the perception of that person in market might be, well, they're not adapting to what the business actually needs because they're so focused on doing everything legit and the right way. But the super IC takes every persona that we have just talked about and applies it to what it is that they're doing. They can go 0 to 1, they're hands-on, they're vibe coding, if you've heard of that term. And they're all about doing more with less, and we don't need engineering resources until we validated the hypothesis, and I'm going to do all of that, and then we'll determine whether we kill it or actually build it. That's the super IC. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on titles. Chime in with your questions at the end if you have questions about titles, because titles are funny things. And each of these titles, with the exception of product marketing, could mean the same function. Okay? I want to touch on product marketing, however. Product marketing is a very valuable, critical function, many times found in a product organization, sometimes found in a marketing organization. And the beautiful thing about product marketing is that you could have the world's best product, but if product marketing is not, if they didn't nail it, if we don't have that piece, pulled together, questionable success of the product. So everything has to work from 0 to 1 to launch, and product marketing is the piece that's make it or break it. Okay? Product marketing is about value narrative versus features functions. We don't care about all the technical mumbo jumbo of how it got built and what it does. How is it going to help me? Why should I use it over something else? Okay? This is the Lyft, Uber, right? Those go-to-market teams went nuts. This is why you want to be using Lyft, not Uber. So huge, huge, huge part of product. Because titles are funny things in the world of product, what's more important for you as a product person or someone on a journey into a product role is understanding this. This is the screen. And by asking the questions and seeking to understand this, will showcase to an employer that you're able to think deeper beyond a title and that you're looking to ensure that there's great alignment between what an organization who's interviewing you needs and where you can add the greatest value. And you as a candidate, if we think candidate mode, where you will be able to recognize what's going to really, scratch your itch, where you want to be. So first of all, we always want to understand the scope of the role. Okay? Because you could be called a product manager and have one little button in a massive application, or you could have the whole application, or the API integration layer, or the front end, or no, you're in the technical back end dealing with the tech debt. Understanding the scope of the role is critical for you to determine whether you would even want to do the job or whether you have done enough that an employer would take you seriously for a position. Next, the scale. Understanding the scale of the product. Is anybody using it? Or does it have 1 million monthly actives, right? Understanding the scope and scale of the product and the role. So understanding scope of role, you're working with a team of 3, you're working with a team of 30. All of this is critical in a candidate mode discussion and flow. Understanding the mandate and the mission and the big question Simon Sinek taught us to ask, which is why. Why is this product or this role that you're hiring for, why is this important? Why does it matter? Does anybody care? What happens if we get it wrong? What happens if we get it right? What might this unlock for me when I deliver this to you and to the organization? Very, very critical. Some product managers want to be attached to deeply missional businesses and products. But what is missional to one is just a money-making for-profit enterprise for another. So we cannot assume that there's a missional narrative unless you're looking for it. Okay? The people. When we think about our product career, the people we are working with, who we are reporting to, and who ultimately leads the organization are foundational, because that's going to determine how big of a deal product is to the company you join and how uphill of a battle product might have when it comes to asking for the data, asking for resources, or taking time out of competing priorities to present what product is working on and the value it's going to deliver to the business. Okay, so understanding the people when you are in candidate mode is everything. You always want to be learning from someone and working at the feet of someone who has done the things that you want to do one day. You want to be thinking about, as an individual, as a candidate, how might that person close some of the gaps that I have? Because we all have them. Because that's going to help you understand the final point: who will I have become when I leave this opportunity, no matter what the type of product organization it is, what the title of the function is? Who will I be when I'm done here? Because your career, my friend, in product is most likely going to be 3 years max, whoever you join. The average tenure, the last time I looked, was 2 years, 3 months employed in a role at a company. And in product, because product moves so fast and changes fast, you need to have thought through, what does this add to my toolkit now? Who will I have become by the time I'm done? And how does that align to my North Star? So if I want to build a career as a craftsperson persona, I better be working for someone who's a craftsperson, who works for or has worked for a company like Shopify, where before you are even considered for a role in their product organization, you've got to be interviewed and vetted by the product champions who validate you're good enough to even be considered. Because once they've signed off on you, then you go into a special pool of candidates who they would hire from the next time they have an opening. It's not just a zero, I apply, I get interviewed, I get hired, unless, of course, you work for very particular companies, but that's something different. Let's talk about what product looks like in a company. Now, I'm fully aware that this community listening today comes from a very large cross section of the market. Some of you are already employed as product people. Maybe you work for an enterprise, maybe you work for a startup. Some of you aspire to work for any one of those types of companies. So it's important to sometimes lift our head and think about the world beyond the one that you know, so that you can ask yourself, might I want to work for a company like this? Because understanding where you want to work, as much as understanding where you do not want to work, are equally important. And if I kind of help you check some boxes off or validate your hypothesis of where you want to be, I am happy to do that. So we're going to talk first with a startup scenario I call stage one. This is a startup. This is a lot of who I work with. I work with startups and I work with scale ups. Small percentage of companies are enterprises. So this is my world here. There's two co-founders. One takes the role of CEO, one takes the role of CTO and all the technical stuff. So in the beginning, the most critical functions are the engineers who are building stuff. Product doesn't even really exist yet as a function. And then the CEO who's trying to commercialize and sell this thing. They're trying to get some early win customers to validate, hey, we actually add value to somebody. Somebody wants to buy this stuff. And the concepts around function, around product exist, some in the co-founder CTO, and then some in the co-founder CEO. So it's this, there's a lot of gray matter here. Roles are crossing, job sharing. Okay? But then the business begins to grow. And then they've raised some money. So now we have money beyond angel, seed, friends and family, da 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 da. Okay? So now organizations are being built out. On the product side, the CTO now begins to build out a product function, of course, in infancy. And then UX begins to emerge. Typically, UX will report into product. And in this early stage, for most businesses, Series A funded, getting to Series B, product still reports to that co-founder CTO. It still reports to a technical leader. Okay? But then we're at stage 3 where we're entering a time of maturity and 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 what I start to call operational mode. Okay, so now we have defined leaders. I want you to look at the screen on the right. There's now a chief product officer, commonly referred title, who begins to build out that organization. At some point, that CPO hires a VP of product. That person is managing individual contributors. The CTO is no longer managing ICPMs. Design has begun to come out of product now from a tactic, and there's now a strategic design leader reporting to a CPO who's business and strategy. Okay? And then those organizations begin to get flushed out, and engineering begins to mature. Stage 3, which is the last stage that we're going to talk about, is the scale up business in full ops mode. All right. So the CEO is running the show and the chief product officer reports to the CEO. I'm going to talk about that co-founder who I've got here up and to the left in a minute, but you can see how product has been flushed out. The CPO has leaders who own product verticals because there might be a product that's sold to banks, but one that's sold to CPG companies. Then they've got a VP of a core platform. They own the underlying technology that powers everything. Then you've got that VP product who's more of an experienced front-end person. They're thinking about how do we onboard effectively and we need to have a mobile app experience, and they're thinking about forms to be filled out on the app, da 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 da. And then product leadership has its own organization. I'm showing you also one model where the co-founder technical guy or girl They have moved out and they're now running an innovation lab. They're in the playroom and they're thinking about all the other things that they want to try to experiment with that might deliver other paths of revenue to the core business. Doesn't always happen, but it's happened more times recently than I am amazed at. So I thought I'd showcase that. We want to think about the employer when we think about product organizations and someone in this room who's trying to build a career in product, right? It's sometimes when we're a candidate, we are thinking about us. This is what I want. This is where I want to be. This is how much money I want to make. This is the kind of leader I want to work for and the culture that I want to be a part of. And I'm looking for all of these things, people who are curious and have grit and work hard and da da da. And while that is part of the equation 100%, what you want and where you want to be matters tremendously. To be in effective candidate mode, we have to think about aligning to an employer. Because guess what? They own the decision on whether you're going to go there. Or at least get the offer. You ultimately own the I'm accepting, I'm declining. But to get to a written offer, you must have connected with every step on the employer side. The talent acquisition people, the stakeholders, the domain experts, the designers whose opinion chimes in, whoever they put in front of you needs to sign off that form, okay? So let's talk about what an employer is struggling with in many cases, okay? And this is not rocket science. If we all look at this, we're thinking, yes, I get that. So it evokes in us the opportunity to ask, how will I communicate in an interview setting? How am I going to be aligning my narrative when I know that an employer is struggling with these things when they're interviewing me? Okay. So first of all, number one, before they even meet you, they're thinking about, is there anybody we could promote? Anybody. Because the cost of hiring from the outside is high. And it doesn't always work out. And every employer in today's market, I'm talking 2025, this is not legacy information from the good old days when everybody was hiring. I'm talking now. Employers want to do more with less. They want to be able to showcase a win internally by promoting. And they're trying to reduce costs. So if they can give someone $20,000 more to promote them versus hiring from the outside with someone who might be making $50,000 more because they have that very specific experience that doesn't exist internally yet, they're thinking about this stuff. They're also thinking about potential versus experience. Okay? Are they prepared to spend the time investing in people, or do they need someone who's done it before? They want rapid ROI on every hire. And the amount of time that they spend thinking about these things depends on the mission of the role. Is this the only role they're going to hire this quarter, so this person better crush it and get it done? Or is it one of 10 hires you're going to make this quarter? Domain experience, industry experience is the number one requirement most companies are recruiting for today. That's important to understand as a candidate. We're going to tease that out and what that means to you in your job search in a moment, but that's a practical reality. Employers are thinking about how the work gets done. Will they really be flexible to hiring someone who's never done the job before and works remotely? Or if you've never done the job before, but they really like you and they're going to give you a shot, but they want you in the office 4 days a week, this is what they're thinking about. It's huge. And then culture. At some point in a business, someone who's going to disrupt things, who doesn't fit culturally, is going to get hired. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes it's not. So they're thinking about this. And so they're looking at every candidate they meet. They're looking at you through this lens. Okay. And the two huge questions that employers are asking themselves when they meet a candidate or even before a search begins is are they hiring for who they are today and the needs of the business today, or are they hiring for who they're trying to become? And sometimes you as a candidate will never know that answer. So you might feel disappointed if you're not the individual who advanced to the next step. But maybe in the process of meeting you, they discovered they would solve the problems that we have today. But the bigger issue that we're trying to solve in the hire is who are all of the things that are coming down the road and that we know we're going to be doing in 8 months, 12 months, 14 months. And so that's why I bring this up to you to try to encourage you that your job search process and your career into the next place you're going to be is a process. And there's no quick and easy answers to anything because people hire people, they don't hire resumes. People hire people, they don't hire who you're for your desires. People hire people ultimately to do something that no one else in their organization seems to be able to do or have the capacity to do. And you may not always be enlightened to those explanations. And as a candidate, you cannot get hung up on, can I just have a call to understand why? Can I just get some more details on why I wasn't chosen? Maybe you'll be given that information and maybe you won't. And your role is to pick yourself up the next day and you keep going because someone's going to hire you because there is opportunity for you. Okay. We're at the last screen, so start to think about the questions that you have so far, because we're going to have time to answer some of them. But I want to end with talking about your product career and how to begin to think about what to do. What do you do? How does someone navigate a career in product? First of all, it's important to understand where you want to be and where you don't want to be. And I'm not talking about philosophical ideas, although, yes, write those down on a separate piece of paper. I'm talking about the things that you can actually determine by looking at a company, reading some information, understanding what their product is. So your North Star might be, I want to work for um, a product, like a native product company. I want to work for a company where the product is the business and it generates ARR and where that's the business. That you might decide that. Or your North Star might be something much more holistic, which is my North Star, my goal is I want to become a founder one day. I want to be a founder of a company one day. And so I need to close the gaps across all different types of companies and product experiences so that when I launch that side hustle I've already been working on for a couple of years, it's going to be high likelihood of success and I'll be able to raise money and then I'll be able to hire people and then I'll be able to build business. And then, you know what, one day, I can engage Heidi to help her, to get her help to build our team. Okay. So that might be your North Star. So understanding that is number one. Then I want you to think about a big idea, which is in your job search process, you are actually not looking for a job. You're not looking for any particular posting that you could get. What you're looking for is an opportunity to deliver value to a business. And that might mean that your role in might be a product role, or it might be another kind of a role, which you already have a narrative for, and it's not product. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Well, most people struggle to get hired 0 to 1 I'm not a product person. Now I got hired to be a PM. That chasm is really tough to cross. Some people do it. Amazing. Most don't. So we need to think about looking for opportunities where you can deliver value based on what you know or what you've already done, and then being successful in whatever role they hire you to be in. You got to crush it. So if they say, you know what, we think you'd make a great business analyst as a starting point, amazing. Help me understand the scope and the scale of the kinds of initiatives I would be working on as a business analyst, because we talked about understanding scope and scale, right? What would be examples of the kind of product or project I would be working on as a business analyst? Got it. How does that fit into your product organization today? Great. What might be a career path from that role into product? What would I have to do to validate I'm someone you would promote into a product role? Have you ever had anyone go through that path where they started as a BA and then they moved into a product role? Got it. You're seeking to understand the situation when you're in the interviewing flow so that you can place a bet and say, you know what, based on how they run their business, based on what that business is, based on what the mission, the scope, and the scale is, I'm interested because I know I can hit it out of the park. And that's what I need to do to be considered for a product role. Then, while you're in that role working for a company, crushing it, you're building internal champions. You want a great relationship with your upline. Whoever you report to needs to know you by name. Hard to do if the team is large. Obviously, not if the team is two or three. But you want people to begin to know who you are. You want to volunteer for initiatives. You want to be the person who says yes to the hard thing no one's ever done before. You want to apply product to whatever job you are hired to do. You want to showcase that you're a PM so that one day when there's an opportunity in the product organization, your upline recommends you for that position. And if they don't, in your performance evaluation, you are asking why. Hey, I just want to share my dream with you. My dream is to work in the product organization because clearly I've invested in that in my career and my education, and it's really where I want to begin to, close the gaps in my background, because my North Star is I want to be a chief product officer just like you. And then asking that person, speak some truth to me. What do I need to develop that you would recommend me to that product leader over there the next time there's an opening? That's a conversation you want to have. Okay? So all of this suggests that placing value on the role that you're joining a company in step one, you want to understand, who will I be when I'm done this BA role at this company? And what value do you place on that? Is that 20,000? Is that 30,000? Because imagine getting hired as a BA in Shopify. Well, now you're working for a craft level product business. That's worth more than maybe being a BA somewhere else. So even if the comp plan is not quite where you wanted it to be, the value of that opportunity is greater than the value of that same function, role, scope somewhere else. The other thing to think about is understanding that to be successful in product means that you have to stay and not always go. You have to stay long enough in a business to ensure that you have been successful, that you have shipped something, that you have delivered value, so that you have a narrative for future employers who are considering you. There's a whole community out there in the real world who are chasing money. They're chasing a couple thousand with job changes, or they're looking to move often when things get hard. In the world of product, welcome to hard. Everything you do will be hard. You're hired to do hard things. So to accomplish those things, you have to stay long enough to do that work and to share with someone the narrative when they ask you, tell me about a time when what you worked on didn't work out, when you failed, what were the lessons you learned from that, and how would you apply that in your next role? That question, a lot of people, they don't have the story. They talk about hypothetical scenarios, but not the real scenario. Okay. And when we're thinking about an opportunity, my friends, we always want to be thinking that we are making our decisions to run towards an opportunity, not running away from something. Things are going to get hard. That's what you've been hired to do. We stay, we don't run away. And when one day the opportunity comes that we were hoping would come, we want to move with intention towards it for the right decisions, because what you were hired to achieve, you have accomplished. You've got the data, the metrics to back it up. You've got the stories, and now you're ready to do something new. This is my email address. If we don't have time today to cover off everything that you are going to, hang on, let me share that again. If we don't have time today to cover off all of your questions, please email me, and please make sure that you let me know that you were here today so that I prioritize it. Okay. Before we start questions, I want to point out that you may have heard from Connor. In fact, I know you did, that our company is doing something super fun for you guys, which is we are going to be kicking off a campaign to showcase your program, your degree program, and alumni for all of those employers who might be thinking about their hiring needs for someone who has done the things that you have done and your degree program. So if that is something that you are interested in being a part of, you need to add yourself to the Google sheet that Connor has already shared with you. I'm going to reshare that with Kit, who will send it to you tomorrow in the Zoom recording email. And I will also include the deck that I've presented today so that you have that in your toolkit. Okay? So thus ends the formal part. We've got 11 minutes here for some questions. I'm going to click on the Q&A tab right now. And we have a question. And it is, considering the diverse background and skill sets a PM can have, oh yes, what is the process you go through with a prospective job applicant to identify the right role organization to work for? Great question. And how do you help them from there? Okay, I'm going to answer that from a couple of perspectives, because as you've already realized, there's no easy, quick answers when it comes to thinking about product careers. So first of all, how we work with you're calling yourself a job applicant. I'm not going to call you an applicant, because we provide a service to employers, and that's a retained service. Employers retain us because they've got a big problem. The applicants applying to their posting are not a fit, or they're not relevant, or they're in the wrong location. Something's going on, and the people who are applying to their posting are not the right person for them to hire. So they say, listen, we've been looking for 8 months. This isn't working. We need to hire Heidi and her team to do this. So what do we do then? We work for them, and we understand who they will hire. What is that persona? What does that person need to have done previously? Where do they have to live? All the things. And we go and we find those people. We do outbound. Okay. So I'm less interested in applicants, because there's really no applicant. I'm going after people in the market today. So if they say, I want the top 5 product managers at Uber in Vancouver, that's who I'm going to go get for them. Now, how do we work with a candidate? So let's think about you as candidates or product managers thinking about becoming a candidate. Okay? We work with those individuals. So if you want to introduce yourself to me, to a recruiter, we're going to take a look at your background and figure out, okay, does this person have the types of experiences in general we get retained to recruit for? And if you do, we may book some time with you. We might to understand a few things so that we can accelerate engagement with you once we have a search for which you could fit. If we don't have the bandwidth, because maybe we have 20 searches and they're all deadline centric and we don't have a role for you anyways, even though you've largely fit and aligned to our projects, we'll say, you know what, there isn't anything right now, but got it, understand, yes, and we're going to keep in touch for once we have a search. If I have lots of time on my hands and I think, wow, oh my goodness, you're a product manager at Google. Yeah, I want to talk to you even though I don't have a search. We're going to make some time for that. Okay. So what we do with a candidate and an individual depends on, do we have a search? Do we have time to have generalized conversations or not? But the bigger thing that we do is that we provide resources and insights to help candidates think about their careers. So we have a YouTube channel. We post content that could help you. We provide a resume coaching service where I become a coach and I'm one-on-one with you to help level up the narrative. Because if you've spent your entire life as a director of engineering and now you want to pivot to product, I'm going to guess that your resume looks like an engineering resume and not like a product resume. And you would have no idea how to reimagine that because you're an engineer. So you think completely differently. We need you now thinking like, how do we capture the attention of a CPO or a founder looking for a product person? Follow me on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time talking about candidate mode, how to think about being in candidate mode, because I can't meet everyone who asks to meet with me. I literally can't. I work for the clients who have retained us. So if I can't meet with everyone, but every day I'm getting 10 people saying, hi, do you have any tips or tricks for me? I'm trying to break into a product career. I'm going to point you to resources where I've already talked about that. Okay. Typically, we are in a position where we can place someone once they've been a product manager at a native digital product company long enough that they have hit the high notes and delivered value. So if you were hired at a software company and you were hired to stand up their API integration strategy and their API ecosystem, and you did it, amazing. Because I'm going to need to talk to you, or one of my recruiters will, when we have a search for another company where it's something to do with API integrations and a 0 to 1 person. You're the one we need to talk with. Yeah, that's how that works. So we optimize for experience and relevancy of that experience to our clients because that's who we are working for. We work for the companies who retain us. Long-winded answer. How do you suggest we prep for the alumni marketing opportunity? Oh, great question. You don't need to prep. We're doing the prep. We're doing a big, heavy marketing campaign lift, and we're anonymizing everyone. So you're going to fill in that form that Connor sent you. You're uploading your LinkedIn profile and your resume so that I can take a look at it. The benefit to doing that is, guess what? I, Heidi, am looking at every single person on that Google sheet, and I'm thinking, okay. And then we're creating an anonymized narrative, a few lines about everyone, and we're going to be marketing that to companies all over North America who might want and need an alumni from your program and where your experiences fit with them. All job postings require experience in an industry. If we don't have much experience in a particular industry, how can we navigate this requirement? Well, you can't. If they say we will only hire someone who worked for an automotive manufacturing company, because we're working on systems to build autonomous vehicles, that's a yes, no for you. You have it, you don't. So you could be one of those people who applies no matter what, or you could focus on other opportunities. Now, the other thing to think about is the flow to job seeking outside of applying to jobs. Because if I were to be real, like if we go real talk here, the flow of pressing a button and applying for a job is not a strategy. That is a tactic that works in a candidate's market. we're in an employer's market. So that worked in 2000, in 2020 and 2021. But this is 2025. So what that means is you want to be leveraging LinkedIn as your top of funnel marketing tech stack and expanding your connections, commenting on connections, posting content so that your network is served up what you are sharing publicly so that someone might look at your profile and think, hey, I think we need her. They're saying something interesting on LinkedIn. They're expressing interest in my content. That is the number one marketing tool businesses use, and you are trying to unlock engagement with a business, with a hiring stakeholder. So don't underestimate that. And if you go down the rabbit trail of LinkedIn content engagement, I really, there's a lot out there already. I won't talk more about it, but I do recommend that. Okay. So we are 2 minutes to go before we kick off and you go on to the rest of your day. I hope that this was beneficial to you. And if you have any questions and if you just need to understand a few things about being in candidate mode, please email me and I'll send you some additional resources because it's not easy to be a candidate. It is not easy to be a job seeker. It is not easy to level up, meaning if you're already a product manager and now you want to move towards becoming a head of product, it's not easy. But guess what? Many people before you have done this. So it's possible. You can do this, but it may not necessarily come from the path you think it's going to come from. So being open and really doing research on how you can apply different strategies and tactics, both strategies, tactics work together, how you can apply things to you personally, that's really important. Don't allow yourself to get caught up in negative Nelly narrative. Companies are hiring, people are getting hired. It's happening every day, and it's going to happen for you. And I really hope it does. So it's been a pleasure being with you today. And I can't wait to meet you guys in the industry in the future. Kit, is there anything else?
No, I think you're good.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone. And we'll see you through email if you want to have a conversation. Bye now.